season. Its deputy chairman, the governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, says the country has achieved self-sufficiency in many crops.
Harvest has commenced in some parts of the country in respect of some crops, and because of that, the prices have begun to respond to harvest by coming down. As importation ban list, what CBN did in order to support domestic maize production was to restrict the sale of foreign exchange for maize importation. And but maize is not a banned commodity yet.
President Buhari has instructed the central bank not to issue a kobo of the country's reserves for the importation of food items and fertilizer. He insists that the focus should be on empowering local producers and farmers. That way, the government will ensure food security while fixing the unemployment rate. From the State House in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
All right, Dr. Abiodun Daramola, Director, Center for Agricultural Technology and Entrepreneurial Studies at the Bells University of Technology. I'd like to start with you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, obviously, you also have to start paying a little more for bread, going back by what the Premium Bread Makers Association, and there's a second association as well, going by what they're saying. But let's begin with Mr. Tosun Jemide, who is the president, Premium Bread Makers Association of Nigeria. Please tell us, Mr. Jemide, thanks for joining us. Why do we have to toe this line? Jemide, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead now. We know, I mean, it's been in the news that for about 2 years or thereabout, there's been this conversation about people having to pay more for bread and allied products, especially because of the increase in prices of baking ingredients, baking products, and all of that. Why now? What's made this one more peculiar, seeing that from what you have said, it has to affect the prices that people pay? Hitherto, there were increases in those things, but it didn't affect the prices of commodities. So why now?
Well, what's been happening really is that the bakers have been subsidizing a lot for the consumers, because we understand it's a very price-sensitive market. And, people don't have that kind of expendable income to throw around. So an additional increment in price will generally begin to affect the common man, So it's been a very tough decision for us. But the fact is we have to deal with the reality. The cost of production has been going up incessantly. In the last 4 months between pre-COVID and now, it has been astronomical and totally unbearable. So, we've come to the point where we know, that there's absolutely nothing we can do about it.
The specific issues.
Sorry, take that again.
What are the specific issues?
Okay, so we're dealing with price increases. Most, if not all, our inputs have some sort of import components. Flour, which is like 60 to 70% of our inputs, has the wheat import component. Flour millers have to import wheat. They import it at the dollar rates. They generally will go to the black market, parallel market, to get their forex, and that constantly hikes the price of flour. In the last, between March and now, flour has gone up 6 times. So we are manufacturers we produce bread. There's no way we can, continue to absorb these increases from our suppliers of raw materials and not be able to, jack up the prices.
Dr. Daramola,
This generally...
okay. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Yes.
This generally cuts across board. I mean, I'm talking about flour alone, but if you look at all our raw material inputs down to the smallest item, we've experienced huge increases, you know, so we've gotten to the point where we have no choice.
Right. Dr. Daramola, how do you react to this? It will seem like indeed it's a long time coming, right?
Yeah, thank you for having me. The most of the bread, I mean, the
90% of the wheat we use in Nigeria is virtually being imported. And it's not sustainable. I listened to the Bakers Association the other time, and they were saying that they have to rely on a black market to import. That shouldn't be. I expect that for a commodity, an essential commodity like flour, we should have government giving the importers of wheat direct rates that will make it sustainable for them to import. While at the same time, I am sure in some part of Nigeria, we have some part of Nigeria that can actually grow wheat. We have some species of wheat that can grow in Nigeria. I think government need to raise seedlings and start to give it to farmers, direct seedlings to farmers to sustain the production locally. Thank you.
So what inputs do universities of technology, such as yours, have in all of this to ensure that at least they stand in the gap and make good use of technology?
Yes. Thank you. The technology is being applied in our own sense because we engage in capacity building, developing the capacity building in agriculture. We just conducted a virtual workshop telling the whole world about the opportunities in agriculture, agribusiness, and agro-engineering. And the technology is there. We have the manpower. We have the trained academics. So we are poised to train young farmers, interested farmer retirees, people that want to engage in farming. We have partnership with IIT and other groups to empower people that want to go into production.
So which of the technology is there now specifically for this purpose?
The technology that is there is to engender wheat production in Nigeria, in particular areas that the soil component can support the growth.
Right. There's been a lot of drive about, buying made in Nigeria, encouraging local production such that we don't have to try to get forex, which eventually makes things expensive. So when you try to, venture into that area, trying to maybe buy local, patronize those that produce locally, what do you find?
Well, buy local is a very noble venture. I applaud the government for that, but I think that we need to be systematic about this. Now, we do not have the capacity yet. We find that there's scarcity in trying to buy local because there are no economies of scale. We also find out that it is more expensive buying local because you don't have economies of scale. So for a manufacturer, it is easier to import. Secondly, the wheat that is produced or grown in Nigeria is not really the kind of wheat that goes well with the flour that we used to bake. I know that the millers do not like to use it because I think it's the protein, or it has something to do with the gluten. And it doesn't give you the best quality flour.
Okay,
so
a couple of things.
You have to look at all those things and, okay, Mr. Dar.
Pardon me, a couple of things here. Now, if that were the case, are we working with institutions here? Because we just heard him talk about IIT and some other agencies are here to fine-tune some of these things and address that challenge. And then I do remember too that when Mr. Additional was Minister for Agri, he was talking about you can produce bread with cassava and some of the other variants. So what's going on?
I would like to see the cassava that was produced with bread. I mean, the bread that was produced with cassava, because for me it was a lot of hype. The bakers we never saw any bread baked with cassava.
I thought the USCs and the likes.
Tried it.
Oh, you tried it? What happened with it?
Yes. Okay. Do you buy cassava bread? Do you see it?
Because you stopped producing it?
Because there's no cassava. First of all, if I want to buy 1 kilo of cassava, it is more expensive than 1 kilo of wheat bread. Secondly, the cassava in the bread that we know to be bread is not really edible. It has a very funny, bitter taste.
All right,
so there's a lot of
that's taken, Mr. Jimmy. But let me very quickly, 30 seconds, Dr. Daramola. You want to respond to that very quickly?
Yeah, I think we have to start with our own products. The wheat that is produced in Nigeria, the glutenin or whatever is there, those are anti-nutrient factors which can be worked on, and we need to incorporate a little of cassava with the fry dryers we have. Has
that been proven by any science?
Yes, we have cassava bread by IT. I have visited, I have seen that. So we have to start with what we can produce.
Perhaps then we need to begin this conversation between the technologists and the bakers. But we have to thank you very much for your time this morning. Mr. Tosin Jemide is President, Premium Bread Makers Association of Nigeria, and Dr. Abiodun Daramola is Director, Center for Agricultural Technology and Entrepreneurial Services Studies, Bells University of Technology. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time.